Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. Happy Memorial Day. You may be traveling somewhere. You may be traveling home. You may be getting ready for a cookout, not a barbecue. Bruce Pearl learned that the hard way, right?
I think barbecue is fine.
Barbecue?
I think that barbecue is fine.
A type of food. Type of food, not an event.
I just think that like the point of words and communication is to effectively tell the person what you want to say, and I think barbecue gets the job done. That's my.
I think they serve burgers and hot dogs at that event where Aaron Kraft was or was not, and I think it was not a barbecue; it was a cookout. So that's fine. That's fine. We have a fun topic today because Ari had an incredible column over the weekend.
Incredible.
10 players were not incredible. Yes, I liked it. 10 players are not talking about enough. I wanted to come on here, Ari, and be like, we're going to talk about Arch Manning again. Just kidding.
Listen,
people are tired of that.
We're doing this on Memorial Day. People are, hanging out and, have a lot going on today. If you're here right now with us live, you're a diehard. We want to talk about football, and we want to talk about some players that, frankly, have not been spoken about enough. And, I think that we do a pretty good job, Andy, as a duo, covering the sport and going around the horn a little bit. And, these names have popped up from time to time, but there are too many really good players out there that are being overshadowed. And I think my theory of that is it's such a intensely deep year for the quarterback. Every conference, all the power schools have exciting quarterbacks for the most part. You can look around and it's like there's a reason to get excited about Indiana's quarterback. There's a reason to get excited about Oregon State's quarterback, frankly. Everybody's got an interesting story. And, this year, that's going to be the story of the season. But how about all these awesome, amazing players that, exist that we don't talk about enough? So let's do it today.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's all different reasons. Like, listen, I'll be honest. We talk about Arch Manning a lot because when we talk about Arch Manning, lots of you want to watch and want to comment on it. We talk about Nico a ton because, man, you love talking about Nico. But there's a lot of guys that for one reason or another are not getting the shine right now. Ryan Wingo is a good example. He's on your list. He's the Texas receiver. And we talked about him a little bit with Clark Brooks last week. This is a guy who probably would have been used more on a different team last year as a freshman, but they had Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond. He was good and probably would have put up bigger numbers somewhere else, but he was behind a first-round draft pick and another really good receiver.
And I also think, too, that, Jeremiah Smith, we've talked about a lot as an alien, and I just feel like because they're the same age and the same class that everybody's directly compared to somebody who shouldn't be compared to. Jeremiah Smith is a good wide receiver, but I think he's a receiver in his own category, and Ryan Williams, compliments to him, was good enough to at least be compared to him directly without people laughing, right? But just because you didn't have you're going to be a first-round pick freshman season doesn't mean that you're not really good, and that also goes for the other receiver on this list, and that's Cam Coleman at Auburn, another player who was incredibly productive despite the fact that he played in a team that didn't have competent quarterback play. And this is another person that most certainly could be selected in the future in the first round. And I feel like whenever you talk about Auburn being good, you get met with laughs. And it's like, if Jeremiah Smith was on Auburn's team, people might not be laughing as much. And I feel like there's a other player out there that was ranked in the same general area as him, who was very productive last year and now might have a quarterback to throw him the ball. He could have a huge year. And it's like, I just don't think that people outside of Auburn fans have acknowledged that. And it bothers me.
Well, and I also think their addition of Eric Singleton Jr. from Georgia Tech,
frees it up.
That helps Cam Coleman and that helps Eric Singleton, because I think Eric Singleton probably didn't have that guy on the outside that scared defenses. So defenses could worry about him. And he still got his. You saw him in the Georgia game. He was awesome. But imagine now he's moving around in the slot and you've got Cam Coleman on the outside. They're going to feed off each other. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. And I just think too that production and physical traits Like, I mean, his traits are off the charts. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just, oh, this guy was ranked high, so I think he's good. Like, he was productive and he's massive.
Right. If we were talking about the physical freakishness of the receivers in the class of 2024, obviously Jeremiah Smith is at the top, but Cam Coleman was next. Like, Ryan Williams had an amazing year. We just talked about Ryan Wingo, but in terms of just being a physical freak, Cam Coleman's more freaky, but he didn't have the same kind of year. It took him a while to get going. As you mentioned, the quarterback play at Auburn was pretty suspect. So I think what we saw in the Texas A&M game and at the end of the season, that was the Cam Coleman that's about ready to break out.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is it's not right because Ryan Williams is 6 foot, but I have an outrageous prediction right now, and I'm probably going to like freak some people out in Alabama, but like I think Cam Coleman in the draft will get taken higher than Ryan Williams eventually. Like, I think that the praise that Ryan Williams is getting is outweighed by, the potential of what, the NFL draft will see in Cam. And I see that now. So, I'm not trying to act like
I think it just depends on how they build on what they did. I mean, if Ryan Williams builds on that season, because he already had a great freshman season, if he builds on that, I think the NFL is kind of wised up. Like, yeah, the physical attributes are great, but if you get open and you catch passes and you make huge plays, like they don't care at this point.
And here's a good comp, and I don't know if it is or not. Devontae Smith, who just had a huge touchdown catch in the Super Bowl and was one of the best college football players of the last decade, is the same size. So, like, it's not, you don't have to be Jeremiah Smith in order to be taken, but it's very possible. And I'll probably end up being wrong because Ryan Williams is so explosive, it's insane, and has that Devontae Smith-ish, ism to him. But like, Cam Coleman, if he is a productive player, has a measurables that will make people like fall over themselves if he continues on this trajectory. And it's like, not like he didn't have a bad year. He had a great year last year. I think he had like 9 or 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. This is with these, because we've talked about that class of 2024, and obviously Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams rightfully got all the pub out of that because they were awesome as freshmen. But if Cam Coleman and Ryan Wingo then become what we think they're going to be, we're going to be talking about how historic that class was in terms of just absurd talent.
Yeah. And I also think, too, that Ryan Wingo is going to make a lot of plays this year that make Arch Manning look good, and he's going to get sucked up into the media sphere. Like, I think that part of the reason why I'm so certain that Arch is going to have a successful year, and part of the reason why I think that Arch Manning being a good Heisman bet right now at 8-1 is because he exists in a world where Ryan Wingo exists. It's, and I think Texas fans are up to speed. I just don't know, like, if you actually have been listening to do you listen to other college football podcasts?
Every once in a while.
Don't hear,
including the ones I'm not on.
Often. Yeah, I listen to a lot of other ones too, because I like to see what they're talking about and how we're doing and steal their ideas and stuff. But like, it's
got a long drive today, and so I've got a backlog that I'm gonna burn through because I'm going to Destin for the SEC spring meeting. So you will be hearing a little bit from Greg Sankey and from all the SEC football coaches this week.
I hear that the spring meetings is a really awesome thing to cover. By the way, I heard through the grapevine.
It's not. It seems like it would be because it's in Destin.
Food, hotel.
Oh, the scenery is amazing, except you can't go out to it. Like, you're stuck in the hotel waiting for people to talk to you who don't want to talk to you. And then
so it's like a playoff thing.
Yes, but the food is good if you can get there. I probably won't be able to get there just because of the schedule. But yes, you can get to the Red Bar, Black and Grouper over fried grit cake. It's my death row meal. So I'm going to try, but I can't. It may be that I'm just eating beef jerky in the lobby.
By the way, I saw somebody post on Instagram or Twitter or something that some guy who just got sentenced to death picked his last meal. And his last meal was the tour of Italy from Olive Garden. I was like, salute, dude. Like that. Like that. Because it's the hunk of lasagna. It is chicken fettuccine Alfredo and chicken parm all on the same plate. And it's like, that literally is like all the stops in Italy you'd want to make. Right? That's the holy trinity of Italian food.
Not really. No, I've actually been to Italy, and that completely ignores Southern Italy.
Oh, I don't know if I've said this on the show. Now, if you want to go down this road, Italian pizza is not as good as American pizza, by the way.
That's true. We perfected it.
Okay,
we perfected it. But Southern Italy's a ton of seafood. It's less pasta. Like those langostinos,
right,
those
don't
are
get
amazing.
All on your Italian high horse. I'm the Americanized Italian food. The holy trinity of that.
We're the greatest country in the world. We perfected everything.
But I'm saying if you go to an American Italian restaurant, the 3 Italian dishes that you get or that make up the Hall of Fame, I'm not saying you can't get ravioli or whatever, are chicken and veal parm on one end.
Yep.
Fettuccine Alfredo in the middle and lasagna on the right? Like, is that not, am I missing something?
No, I mean, if I'm a murderer about to be sent off to hell, the tour of Italy might be the way to go.
And like pizza is its own category, so don't be like pizza. Pizza is its own food here. Is pizza and Italian food different food here?
Probably because they invented it. Again, we perfected it. So
but we created it's pizza is its own food category.
Yes.
Like if you get Uber Eats, it says Italian and pizza. It's 2 separate things.
Right.
So obviously,
Ben, Olive Garden is American food, bro. No kidding, Ben.
I know.
Been to the original in Altamont Springs, Florida. I can assure you it's American.
I mean, Memorial Day is a day to, thank all the people who sacrificed their lives and were brave enough to give us what we have.
The greatest country in the world.
And what we have is part of that is encompassing of all the Olive Garden locations. So like we need to be thankful for that too. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm happy to let me go on that aside. But
chicken parm, the dish in the tour of Italy, we're not talking about enough. No, all right.
Yeah.
Can I throw one of mine in there that's not on your list? We're gonna because your list is amazing. So we're gonna get to that.
I want you to throw as many people on the list as you can.
Yeah,
it's not about what I think, but I'm sure there's people who popped right into your head.
This is a person who I think when certain fan bases go back through their season, and we're sitting there in December. And maybe they've fired a coach, or maybe they've not had the season they wanted. This person will be the name they curse, and it's Marcel Reed, the Texas A&M quarterback.
Interesting,
because Texas A&M is team chaos. We talked about that before. River, if we've got Texas A&M's schedule, let's throw it up there because this is team chaos for sure. There's a good chance they ruin multiple seasons here, even if they only go 8-4. Like the thing about it is if Texas A&M goes 8-4, they probably got at least one person fired and maybe 2. And that's the scary part. So they play Notre Dame, they play Auburn, they play Florida, they play Arkansas, they play LSU, they play Missouri, South Carolina, and Texas. Obviously, they're not getting Sark fired, they're not getting Shane Beamer fired. We know that. But they can make life miserable for Auburn, for Florida, for Arkansas, for LSU. And we don't know. They're going to beat one of those, 2 of those, probably, maybe more. We just don't know who they're going to be. And Marcel Reed could have a lot to do with it. Now, Marcel Reed's got to get better throwing the ball. But we saw Marcel Reed running the ball against LSU, and they couldn't do a dang thing to stop him. So this guy now has a full offseason as the starter. The offense is essentially built around him. Colin Klein's had time to build the offense around him instead of doing it kind of ad hoc as they deal with whether it's going to be Marcel Reed or Connor Wegman. And now I bet we get a much better version of Marcel Reed. And the version we saw last year was good enough to beat some of these teams.
Yeah. I think that it's interesting to look at the SEC quarterback, group. And is he in the bottom 33%? And that's not because he's not good. It's just because that's just the circumstance of how deep the quarterback position is in the conference this year.
I think probably in terms of we're talking about the situations at places where the job's not settled or where we think somebody's going to be awesome because they're new, like Arch, but like it's not settled at Alabama yet. We think it's going to be Ty Simpson. We're excited about what Lenore Sellers can be. We're excited about what DJ Lagway can be. Auburn, we're just wondering. And it was Auburn, at Auburn, and we just talked about this. It was such a huge issue last year. We can't help but discuss what Jackson Arnold winds up being at Auburn. So I think that's more it's that all these other things are just more interesting but it makes us forget.
Well, I want to do a
that's where this guy can sneak up and bite you in the ass.
I want to play the Dylan Raiola game, but I don't want to be offensive about it this time.
Okay.
Like if you go through the list of SEC quarterbacks, Marcel Reed or the other team starter, like how many times do you think you're landing on like Ty Simpson?
I don't know what Ty Simpson is, so that one I might take Marcel Reed.
To go onto the plank and walk it. Like who are you
taking? I think I'd take Marcel Reed because I've seen him. I've seen him beat some good teams.
So that's one. Okay, if you're going to do that, then he might actually do better. But Taylor
Beau Pribula, how about that one? We don't know what he's going to be as a starter yet either.
Yeah. So you take Taylor over Beau Pribula?
No, Taylor is Arkansas's quarterback. So Marcel,
you didn't. Yeah,
I take Marcel Reed over Taylor Green. I think.
Okay, so that's two. And then what about Beau Pribula?
I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know.
What about Jackson Arnold?
I take Marcel Reed right now because we haven't seen.
Okay, so you're illustrating
Austin Simmons, right? But not Austin Simmons at Ole Miss. I take Austin Simmons because we saw that one amazing drive.
What about this? Is an interesting one. What about Gunnar Stockton?
I don't know. But
I think what you're saying is that there are
points out Marcel Reed over anyone in Knoxville right now. Yes.
Yeah.
Check.
So that illustrates your point of like we've spent a lot of time talking about Gunnar Stockton. We've even talked about Zach Calzada on this show.
Yes.
Talked a lot about Raiola. We had James Franklin on to talk about that. We've talked about Diego Pavia a ton, Lenora Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier. Have we spoken about Arch Manning at all? I don't know, like if we have or not.
Once or twice.
He is in the mix of interesting, and he doesn't get his fair share of airtime. So I'm happy you brought him up.
Yeah, I just think they're going to have a good team around him. The defense is going to be good. We'll see what they lose Noah Thomas to Georgia at receiver, but they gain Casey Concepcion. Like I'm excited to see what A&M is. I think it's kind of a mystery. Even if they're 8-4, they're going to be shocking. But what if they are a 9 or 10 win team, Ari? That sort of upsets the whole apple cart in the SEC. And for that to happen, Marcel Reed has to be good. By the way, if you're watching on Twitter right now, it's time to move to YouTube. Hop in the chat, join us, banter with us, make fun of us. It's the place to be. The link below the tweet you're watching will take you to YouTube. We'll see you there. Ari, let's talk about the other names on this list. You've got two from Oregon, and I thought that was really interesting too because Oregon lost a lot of good players, but it feels like they reloaded really well through the transfer portal. So tell us a little bit about Mekhi Hughes at running back and Dylan Thieneman at safety.
So before we do that, I also want to mention that this is probably going to take us to a different conversation, which is, oh my God, how good is Oregon going to be? Because I actually had a third Oregon player on here and I took him off the list because I didn't want it to be 30% Oregon. And that would be Isaiah World, the offensive tackle that they got in the portal. So Mekhi Hughes is the nation's leading returning rusher. He's a transfer from Tulane. Go watch his tape. He's incredibly good. And Dylan Thieneman is a All-American safety from Purdue. Isn't it great that Purdue has like two like really good transfers every year and they just come out and go rock crap somewhere else like Nick Scorn did in the last year?
It would kind of be nice if they could do it at Purdue, which
they do
has happened
Purdue.
Before, but that was when Jeff Brom was coaching them.
Yeah, I think they do it at Purdue. I just don't think that their team around them is good enough for it to shine through. But like Oregon lost a lot of talent from last year, and I think that it's easy to be down on them because Oregon, went wire to wire last year, being the best team in college football. They go to the playoff, they get a bye, and then their first game in the playoff, they get shellacked by Ohio State. It's just like, well, they lost a lot of players from a team that got blown out in their only playoff game last year. Like, how much is there to like about them? And it's like, I know that Dante Moore is an interesting, quarterback situation there, and but I think that it's very clear to me that Oregon has done a very good job in backfilling their roster with some really good players, and these two both, pop out. And it's like, I don't know, like unless you're Ed Reed, I don't know how much conversation people have with the safety position. And I think that he's a turnover causing, havoc wreaker back there. And, something in the back end of the defense at a place like Oregon, I think goes a long way. So, that's one. And then Mekhi Hughes plays the position of running back. And obviously we don't talk about that unless they're Ashton Genty. So I think that it's two really good players. And there are some other really, really good running backs in the country that aren't being spoken about a lot. I'm obsessed with one, and I think he might bring him up here. His mic, you're muted.
Well, the reason I'm muting is stalling.
0 days since Andy mic issue.
That's true. That's true. Put up the graphic. We'll have to make the graphic. But the running back that I want to mention, I got to give Producer River time to make the graphic for him, because that was me saying in a minute I'm going to bring this guy up. But
well, no,
so we're going to talk about. Let's keep talking about Oregon though, because we've had this conversation about other programs in terms of how much is homegrown, how much is in the portal. Oregon is still doing a lot in the portal, though. Like, I don't know, like Dante Moore, I don't think we're considering. Like, he did come through the portal, but he's been there a year. He actually was committed to Oregon for most of his recruitment and then flipped on him. So are they a little portal heavy? Because we've talked about this in terms of Miami too, but are they a little portal heavy, or do they have enough homegrown to make this work? Because they're going to, start 3 portal offensive linemen this year, portal running back, portal safety.
Yeah. I don't know if I just have a hard time with this, or this is a mental block for me, Andy, but I feel like if you recruit at a certain baseline at a high school, then you're immune from being called transient. Like, I think Oregon.
So what you're saying is their foundation is strong enough that you can do this and it works.
I just view it differently. I think that if you're a program that recruits somewhere in the mid-20s to mid-30s, and you have 6-7 players every single year starting in positions of need, then that means that you got these guys out of necessity. And I'm not saying that Oregon didn't have spots that it had to fill, or that, like the offensive line especially, like they didn't have to go get somebody because there would have been holes if they didn't. But I feel like Oregon is luxury shopping, and like Florida State, when they were doing it in the past, was like at the grocery store. And I feel like it's just a different vibe. And like, maybe I'm just completely full of crap.
So Oregon is shopping at that mall by your house that has the billboard with your wife's ex-boyfriend on it.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up again.
You're welcome. No, but it's a good point, because like Mateo Uyunglele is a player that Oregon recruited out of high school, who's going to be one of the best pass rushers in the country this year, and probably also belongs in this list. So you may have had 4 Oregon players on this list if you'd have had him in Isaiah World.
Well, and also Emmanuel Pregnon too, right? Like he was there. Wasn't that the best offensive lineman who's also going there? Like I feel like every single person they brought in at the portal position, like, was a really good player at the pass. Like, I don't know how much speculation, like, you don't need to speculate about whether Mekhi Hughes is going to be good. You don't need to speculate about Dylan Thieneman. You don't have to speculate about Isaiah World. Guys' arms are like long enough to, like, I don't even know. What would you do? The French tickler. I don't know. With long arms, besides being an offensive lineman, but like, he has great long arms. Like, they have a lot.
I want Ari to next draft season. We're gonna have Ari's draft terms, Ari's scouting terms, because the scouts have those their code words, like bubble. That's their word for your butt. Like, French ticklers are gonna be long armed offensive tackles,
freaks. And I just feel like they have enough good players that they recruited out of high school at the other positions. Like, I mean, I think you could probably make the case. I mean, like, Evan Stewart's a transfer, right? But does that count? He's returning. Like,
right.
So I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about that. And I don't know if there's like a rubric, or if it's just different from program to program. But I feel like if you recruit top 15, top 10 classes on an annual basis, Andy, that you're immune from any of the criticisms that you get from being overly reliant on the portal, because I don't know that you're overly reliant. You're luxury shopping. And I think that you could say, like, one woman shops and another woman shops, but depending on where they shop, like, you feel probably different about it, right?
Same for men too. So
I'm a big shopper. Women be shopping.
I'm a great shopper. I actually enjoy shopping. Now, I don't enjoy looking. Like, I'm still going to move pretty quickly and with a purpose, so I'm not going to waste 4 hours in the store. but I do enjoy the process of like trying to find a deal in a store.
Andy doesn't shop. Andy buys. Okay, guys. Like,
That's right.
I love.
Before we get to the running back, I was going to talk to. I actually thematically we probably should talk about Miami after we talk about Oregon, because we've asked the same question about Miami in terms of is this too much portal, or is it a good combination, a good balance? What we said when we talked about Miami, and I still believe this, is if you do most of your trench shopping out of high school and then supplement through the portal, I think that makes you stronger. Let's talk about one of those trench.
I just think Miami is more close to Oregon than it is to another team that is using the portal to make up for its lack of high school recruiting. I think like supplement versus necessity is the huge distinction that I find. And I don't know that, like, Miami just picked up a 5-star offensive tackle that we talked about for the last 2 weeks. So like, I don't know. Miami isn't necessarily Oregon in terms of high school recruiting yet. They're in that direction. Mario Cristobal is a great recruiter, and they just got Jackson Cantwell. Like they're doing the right stuff. But maybe Miami is doing what Florida State probably was trying to do, which is use the portal to have one great year on the field and then use that great year on the field to recruit out of high school. But Florida State never changed their gear. Like they never got back at it. And I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't want to pick on Florida State, but like, why aren't they recruiting better out of high school? If you go back and look at like the rivals and On3 historic rankings, like Florida State was a top 10, top 5 recruiting outfit for a decade straight. And I feel like they can't put together a class for some reason.
But Miami hasn't had that problem. I mean, since Mario got there, they've recruited well out of high school too. Like Francis Malinois is their starting right tackle. This is his 3rd year as a starter, 3rd year in the program, came out of high school, was a 5-star recruit. Same class, other side of the ball, is a guy on your list, Rueben Bain Jr. Rueben Bain Jr., ACC defensive player, ACC freshman of the year, his freshman year. Last year, he gets hurt early, misses 4 games, still winds up honorable mention all ACC, but I don't think really was the guy that you thought he was going to be all season. I think you're going to see that guy this season, and that guy is scary. That guy is really great coming off the edge. And this is a defense that has to get better, because the offense carried Miami last year. The defense was terrible, particularly the secondary. But I think the defense will get better. As much as we like Carson Beck and as much as they might be excited about their young receivers, I need to see it before I believe the offense is going to be on par with what it was with Cam Ward, Xavier Restrepo. That was just a great group. So that defense, I think, is going to have to be considerably better. And with Rueben Bain healthy and playing at his optimum level, I do think that defense can get much better.
I do. And I also think, too, that, like, the injury didn't play up to his potential type scenario is the thing that makes you not talked about enough. But obviously, athleticism doesn't go away if you're back to being healthy.
Exactly. Oh. And that's one of those, when you get hurt early in the season, it just sort of drags and nags all year, and you don't really wind up being what you're supposed to be. Rueben Bain, a healthy version all season. We're probably talking about a very high draft pick in 2026, and a guy who makes quarterbacks miserable. And by the way, 2 of the quarterbacks we talked about a lot this offseason, he gets to see in the first month of the season. So he's going to see CJ Carr at Notre Dame. He's going to see DJ Lagway. Like, they're both coming to Miami to play in the first month of the season.
Yeah, and like Miami is in a position where it absolutely needs a dominant pass rush. Like, I mean, it needs somebody to wreak havoc, because that defense was so bad last year. And I feel like
I think their secondary is going to be better.
It should be.
I think they did a good job in the portal on that one. We'll throw one more name at you. Zechariah Poyser was a safety from Jacksonville State who was a freshman last year, was fantastic in the Sun Belt, or excuse me, in Conference USA. But he looks ready to jump in at the power conference level. Yeah.
Miami is one of those teams, like, I don't know, like Texas A&M just perpetually lives in the world of I don't know what they are. I think Miami is kind of in that ballpark for me this year. Of like last year, I knew going into it, like, they're going to be really, really good. at least offensively. And I think we were right about that. But like this year, this team could be 10-2, or this team could be 8-4, 7-5. And I don't think either of those two things would surprise me. And I don't really know which way to lean on it.
Yeah, I think they could be a playoff team if things break the right way. Like, they probably need to win. Well, if they win the ACC, obviously they're in. But let's say Clemson's too good and it's too hard to win the ACC. If they could beat Notre Dame or Florida and then get to the ACC championship game, we could be talking about a playoff team there.
Absolutely. If they do those things, whether they will or not, I think you have to have a lot of confidence in their quarterback. I think that you're probably more confident in him than I have been.
But at least we know what Carson Beck is. Like, we don't know what CJ Carr is yet. Like, I'm not worried about Carson Beck just laying an egg. That's not going to happen. Carson Beck's going to be an effective quarterback. Is he going to be transcendent like Cam Ward was? We don't know that, but he's going to be effective.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's a trailer. So, effective, I guess, in that role. But, they lost their two number one running backs last year. I think Mark Fletcher's a really good running back. Should be fine. JoJo Trader, CJ Daniels. They've got guys on the outside. Good offensive line. I mean, it's not going to be terrible. It's just what you're talking about. You need to be great. I don't know if I see that right now.
I think they have a chance. The defense has to be really good, and Rueben Bain is a critical piece of that. Now, if Rueben Bain and Akeem Messidor are terrorizing quarterbacks, then it's going to be really interesting. How about a guy who has to play at Miami this year? This is the guy that you mentioned earlier that I was going to bring up. We'll close it out with this one. Florida running back Jadan Baugh. And this was mentioned earlier in the chat. And I think this is a really good point and a guy that we haven't talked about nearly enough. So Billy Napier gets told he's going to stay. In the process of getting told he's going to stay, he was told hire an offensive coordinator. He didn't do that. He's going to continue to be the play caller. So if you've watched Billy Napier offenses, whether at Florida or at Louisiana Lafayette, he likes to run the ball a lot. And Jadan Baugh is the bruising back that he likes to use. He's that type of back. So Jadan Baugh averaged 5 yards a carry last year as a freshman, kind of came on there at the end of the season. But I think with DJ Lagway, potentially I think they're going to have better receivers. We'll see. Dallas Wilson, the freshman, J. Michael Sturdivant. They bring back Eugene Wilson III, who was injured most of last season. I think there's going to be some room for those running backs to run. The line was good at the end of last season, and I think defenses are going to have to respect what Lagway can do through the air. And I just don't know that you can load the box on Florida, and then they throw this 230-pound monster Jadan Baugh at you. That's a problem.
Yeah, I was obsessed with him last year. Runs incredibly hard, gives Florida another dynamic weapon on offense, and anything that can help take the pressure off of DJ Lagway, I'm for. I know that they've got a few freshman receivers that we're super excited about. If those guys can unlock, or one of them can, then you have a consistent run game and improved offensive line and a bullet. We've been talking ourselves into Florida all year. Like, it's very easy to do when you start putting the pieces together.
Yeah. And Jacoby Jackson's pretty good too. Jacoby Jackson actually averaged more per carry than Jadan Baugh last year. So I think they could have a very good running game. And we're all focused on DJ Lagway because obviously he's been the subject of a lot of intrigue this offseason. The resting the shoulder, is he throwing? Now he is throwing. But I think if this works, it works because Florida can run the ball, because that is the offense that Billy Napier wants to run. He is a run-heavy coach. He's not a throw-first kind of guy. Last year they attempted 342 passes. They ran the ball 461 times. That sounds about normal for a Billy Napier offense. Now, will he maybe tweak that a little bit? Like we saw that with Dan Mullen when he was at Florida, where he was very much a run-first coach. And then when he got Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask, he decided, you know what? This is going to be more of a throwing offense. And the percentage went way up on the throw side. So perhaps that happens this year, but I suspect Billy Napier is going to run the offense he's comfortable with. And the reason he didn't hire an OC is because he wants to run the offense he's comfortable with. So it's going to be up to Jadan Baugh to be very productive.
Yeah. And somebody actually almost put on the list. So I'm happy you brought him up.
Yeah,
is there anybody else
I'm fascinated by it.
Or do we have to get graphics in the background?
No, you bring up whoever you want.
Throw up the list again, River. Well, here's one. And I don't know if we're going to go in order or not, but Nic Anderson at LSU is one that, because like how I've been drinking LSU Kool-Aid. So very explosive wide receiver. Somebody who was very explosive at Oklahoma, was injured last year, returning to LSU as a transfer, and might be a very explosive, dynamic player for them.
So averaged 21 yards per catch playing with Dylan Gabriel in 2023. And the catch everybody remembers, obviously, is the one in the Texas game. But this guy's good.
Yeah. And he's another in the Rueben Bain category of injured last year. Can he get back to, being the explosive version of himself that we've seen before in the past? But I think putting him into the LSU, ecosystem makes it very, very interesting.
One more, just because I see this name mentioned in the chat, and you've been excited about this guy all season. Max Klare at Ohio State.
Yep.
The transfer tight end. Once again, Purdue, another great Purdue player. We got hold on, Max Klare, Dylan Thieneman, and Will Helt, the edge rusher at Clemson.
Will Helt at Clemson is probably somebody who should be on this list too, although I think I've spent enough time talking
We've talked about him a lot.
Yeah. But, Max Klare is a pass receiving tight end that is getting inserted into a team that, is breaking in a new quarterback, sure, but might have the most explosive, has the most explosive receiving core in the entire country. And then you have somebody who comes in, having caught 51 passes for 685 yards for Purdue team last year. And it just
can I help contextualize that stat you just threw out?
Go ahead.
This is fun. So Max Klare caught 51 passes for 685 yards. The number 2 and number 3 receivers at Purdue combined for 670 receiving yards. He doubled them up.
Not great, Bob.
Yeah.
Not great, Bob.
So that's why Max Klare was on the market.
So like Ohio State over the years has had some pretty explosive tight ends, and over the years they have not thrown the ball. I mean, there used to be a running joke in the Ohio State press conference or a press box during games where when tight end catch a pass, like everybody started laughing, like, because it's like they never threw it to them, and they spend all spring and all fall, talking about how they want to get the tight end more involved, and they never do. And I think it's partly because Ohio State always has really good receivers that they want to throw the ball to, but like adding him to that equation, if you use him as a threat, the way that he proved he could be, like, I just don't know how you cover all these people. Somebody, even if he doesn't have a huge year, even if he doesn't like match the stats that he had a year ago, isn't it just kind of automatic that like he's going to make somebody better in the receiving room and vice versa? Like, it's just another weapon that people have to scheme for. It's just too much. And it's like, the more you think about Ohio State's, roster offensively, it almost feels kind of like the Arch Manning thing, where it's like, how can Julian Sand fail? Like, how is it even possible for him to fail?
Yeah. I mean, listen, he gets to throw to Jeremiah Smith, but the thing is, Max Klare adds so much in terms of it. It just changes the dynamics of how you have to cover them when you have a dangerous tight end like that.
Yeah.
And it's not like, and obviously they have Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, you name it, but you're exactly right. All right, we're going to leave everybody this. It's a holiday. We're not going all day today. We know you got places to go. We know you got cookouts and barbecues to attend. Steven San Antonio points out.
What'd you say?
I'm trying to not be that guy. Trying to not be so pedantic.
Good job.
All right. Steven San Antonio says the best QB in the nation overlooked again. JP Pickles. All right, Steven San Antonio. We know you're the number one JP Pickles fan. Do you know who JP Pickles is playing for? Because he very recently transferred.
I think I know the answer.
All right. Who is it? Who's he playing for?
I think he plays for UTEP.
He did play for UTEP. He no longer plays for UTEP.
He left.
The pride of Tallahassee, JP Pickles, is now in Macon, Georgia as a Mercer Bear.
Oh, I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Yep.
JP Pickles.
Steven San Antonio is worried. Now what are the Miners going to do? They have to deal. They've got Malachi Nelson, former 5-star.
Yeah. Andy, I know you want to get out of here. I want to get out of here too. I've got a barbecue to attend, but considering I'm public enemy number 1 in Omaha, can we just have a 2-minute conversation about Dylan Raiola, being on this list?
Let's do it.
I don't want. Look at that bastard. He didn't talk about him again. He hates us. I don't want. I'm just going to try to avoid
Okay,
that.
yeah. Let's talk Dylan Raiola.
In the world of insane depth at the quarterback position across the board, I think that it's fair to question whether we overcorrected and went from overly hyping Dylan Raiola to just completely forgetting about him. I feel like I have expressed my worries about his game on the show in the past, also ruffled Nebraska feathers. I'm just not going to Nebraska, the state of Nebraska, for a long time. But let me try to extend an olive branch here and say he still was a 5-star prospect who was fairly productive in his freshman year, and as a place that wants to make the playoff eventually and probably should be in the discourse some. This is on a list we're not talking enough about. We have talked zero about this guy outside of that 5.
Let me throw another name at you that we haven't really talked about that I think will help your case here, because I think Dylan Raiola is going to be better in year 2 than he was in year 1. I think part of that is the offense he'll be running. Part of it is the pieces they put around him. And part of that is just growing up and getting used to the speed of the game. And you tend to make your biggest jumps between year 1 and year 2 as a starting quarterback. So let me throw one more name at you. Dane Key. Dane Key was a really good receiver at Kentucky at times. I think a lot of the problem was they didn't necessarily have anybody to get him the ball. So now Dylan Raiola is going to have a really excellent target in Dane Key. I think Nebraska, their running game should be pretty good. Their offensive line, it feels like they've done what they need to do to patch that. You got, you bring in a couple of transfers, Elijah Pritchett from Alabama, Rocco Spindler from Notre Dame. So you've got guys who've played in big games, who were effective in big games. I do think Dylan Raiola has a shot to be quite a bit better this year. I think they've done what they need to do around him, and now he has to make that leap. But if he does, what did I say? I said Nebraska's an 8-win team, perhaps a 9-win team, maybe going into the Iowa game with a backdoor shot at the playoff. If he does all that, that's what they are. And that's a vast improvement.
And might just be waiting there at the end of the year wishing they played somebody tougher in the non-con.
You had to.
I can't control
you were
myself.
doing so well.
No, I mean, I'm very excited to watch him play. I think that if you're a Nebraska fan and you listen to the Raiola segment that we did 2-3 weeks ago, you might be like, oh, this guy thinks he sucks. And there's no chance that he could ever be good. And I hope that's not, I still fear what I talked about. I'm not backtracking that at all. I still think that an inability to extend plays makes your ceiling as a quarterback relatively low. Maybe he'll be able to break out of that. Maybe he'll work on that a lot this offseason and do something that I don't know is easy to do. We're not talking about him nearly enough, regardless. Even if you
Ty says we always snub Tennessee players when we do lists like this, but when the season comes and Travis Smith and Boo Carter ball out, we'll be using them thumbnails to get views. Yeah, Ty, we've not talked about Tennessee at all this offseason. Haven't talked about your quarterback situation even once. It's a grand conspiracy.
Yeah. Well, I think that he thinks that Tennessee players should be on every list of really good players. And he's a fan. I think he should feel that way. I don't know that I feel bad leaving anybody off.
Can we point out that we have a producer who's a Tennessee grad who is consistently serving Tennessee players into these lists for us? So
yeah. I think that if you wanted to talk about like total number of minutes spent on teams this year, Tennessee might be number one so far. No? Would they be number one of teams we've spoken about the most?
Yes, 100%. Because when the Nico stuff was happening, it was like 2 solid weeks of what's happening with Nico. What's Tennessee going to do about that? So,
yeah, we talk a lot about Joey Aguilar too. And I wrote a lot about it. Yeah.
We have chance to be a legend. He's got a chance to be a legend. But Joey Aguilar is not going to make a list of guys we're not talking about enough because we talked about him a lot.
We talked about him more than we ever would have had he just been at UCLA.
Yeah.
That's facts.
And that's maybe we're not talking about Nico enough because I really want to watch a bunch of UCLA games. Like UCLA Utah is my sneaky favorite game of the opening weekend.
I can't wait. And we're going to watch that together.
We are. It's going to be amazing. Ari, it's been a pleasure. Go enjoy your barbecue. Whether you're going to a cookout or barbecue today, whether you are driving home, whether you are traveling somewhere else, hopefully we've made your trip a little bit easier. Be safe. Don't do anything Ari wouldn't do. We'll talk to you tomorrow.